Hello, hello. Welcome to tonight's live tip of the day. I'm just make sure I can turn off my keyboard on my computer. I just realised I'd forgotten to do that. Hello and welcome to the Studio 77 live. Thanks so much for joining me. Tonight I thought we would do a little trick that I saw today on the internet. I don't know if it's going to work or not, so you're going to have to, we'll see. I think I've got a lot of faith that it's going to work, and I think it's going to be a bit of a game changer for all sewing, so let's see how that goes. In terms of news and reviews from the week, what do we have going on? Lots of stuff behind the scenes that I can't talk about, but we also have as well loads of stuff going in the 77 Club this month, so I have just made all the announcements for that. We have got a hardware masterclass, Hardware 101, talking about all the different bits of hardware, which I know when you start bag making, that's kind of a bit of a hurdle, along with the interfacing. So I wanted to make sure that we went through that. We have also got Sarah Ashford talking about the Rajar quilt, which sounds absolutely amazing. It's about a quilt that was made on the seas when lots and lots of people were being transported to Tasmania. Going to find out all about that. We've got our social, of course, as well. So if you're in the club, check out the email that went out today and check out the events within the 77 Club group to find out all about that. If you're not in the club, there's a link in the description below if you want to find out more. It is currently closed to new members, but we are opening it again in March. So keep an eye out for that. I can see we've got some friends here tonight. We've got Susan, Linda, Janice, Anita, Esther, the other Susan, and Maggie as well. Thank you so much for joining me. Okay, so I've got my camera, you can see it just in shot there because I need to do a little bit of moving around today. So let me move across to here and we can get started. Move my mouse out of the way. So I've prepped up some fabric. This could be a kind of a quick tip today. I'm not sure how long it's going to take, but hopefully it's going to really level up your sewing. I'm sure there's going to be more. There's going to be definitely at least 2 tips in there. So I don't know if you saw this going around Instagram, but it's when you have 2 pieces of fabric. So this would be especially useful if you're sewing up the side of a top, something like that. Could be good for gussets maybe on a bag, especially if you're using cotton. And what it is that sometimes when you get to a part, you have 2 pieces, one which is longer than the other. I don't know if you can see, but my top one is round about 1/2 centimetre longer. I've cut it longer on purpose so that we can get it to fit in. And this is always a bit of a juggle, a bit of a pain. So what do? We just stick some pins in, don't we? I've got a larger pins. I don't know what I've done with my smaller pins. They've gone walkies. You'd think I'd have enough, but apparently not. So I'm going to put a couple of pins in each end, and inevitably we end up with that kind of gap. So then we kind of ease it out, don't we? So what this creator did, and I will have to pop the link to the reel below. Hopefully I can find it. If I find it, I'll pop it below. And what he does is he takes it over to the sewing machine and he uses a ruler. Now I don't have the ruler that he uses, but I've got this, and I've chosen it because it's quite thin. This came from Deb at Me Made Makes, who is a fantastic supplier here in the UK. And the idea being that you place this down on your machine and it helps to ease out, I guess because you're spanning it across that whole width rather than just kind of pushing it in places. Maybe we could do a 1/2 mark as well. Should we do 1/2 mark too? Let's do that. Different ways you can do it, but this is how I'm going to find my halves. Oh, I do have some other news. I am at the Stitch Festival in March, end of March, and I thought I didn't get a discount code, but I do. So if anybody is looking to come and you want to come say hi, well, even if you want to come and you don't want to say hi, you can get a £2 off your tickets by using the code, really easy, Studio7T7, capital Studio, to get £2 off your tickets. Right, let me go across to... Hi, Michelle, Jane, and is that Amy? Anne. Apologies, Anne. Okay, so let's go across to the machine. Okay, so the idea being, I'm going to place it on my 1 centimetre mark, take out my pin. Don't know what stitch length I've got. Let's have it at 2.5. The idea being that we place this on top to even out our ease. So I think it's going to work, you know. Let's see. So I'm just using that. Hopefully I'm not covering the camera too much. I'm using that to try and ease out. And I think if this was a thick ruler, I don't think it would do as well, because even if the foot goes over it, it's not going to change the depth of the foot, if that makes sense. You know what I've just realised? Oh no, I did pull it through, it's all right. Oh dear, what has happened there? My machine, I know what I've done. I know what I've done. I changed it over from a thick thread to a thin thread, and I didn't thread my machine up properly. So let us try that once more. I'm going to have to rethread my machine. That is super annoying because it is threaded up for the thicker thread. So bear with me. It's all fun and games. In there. In there. In there. Because this is the Janome HD9. If you're interested in this machine, there is a video on my channel going through all my pros and cons for it. And the main thing about this machine that's quite different to your regular domestic machine is that when you're using thick or thin threads, you're going to want to thread it slightly differently. But one thing that I love about this, and I talk about this in the video, is that it has a diagram on the side and it shows you exactly how to thread it. The other thing that's different as well is that the needle goes in left to right. The hole is left to right rather than front to back. So that's a little bit different if you haven't used an industrial before. Okay, this time I'm going to go from the other end because I kind of messed up my stitching there. Let's hope that we don't have the same issue. It may be that the tension's a bit tight as well. Could be any number of things. If it doesn't work, I'm just going to roll with it, because that's just going to get very boring for you guys, having me figure out the tension. Right, I'm going to hold my threads to start with. We've still got that gap, that ease. It's actually on the bottom now, which is better because I haven't got a walking foot on, and the bottom feet will take in a bit more of the fabric. So that is going to help me too. But this trick, I guess this trick is going to be better if you're going from the top. Now I'm matching up the stitches that I started with. Looks pretty good. You can see that there's a definite wave in that top, but there's no puckers going along on either side. Let's try it again. This time, so this one, I had it both going in the same direction. The fabric, I cut the fabric and put it together with the same direction. This time I have cut the fabric so that it's going in the opposite direction. So what I mean by that is that you can see there's a little bit of stabilizer interfacing, in fact, I'll get there in the end, interfacing on the ends there. So you can see where I cut it, chopped it up there. So instead of sewing those two back together, I wanted to try it so that I turn it at a right angle and do it that way, because often that will have a bit of difference as well. There is, in fact, can you see that there? A little bit longer on the bottom. Let's turn it over and have the longer on the top. Pop a couple of pins in there and see how we get along with this one. You can see it doesn't want to match up. There is a, can you see that? There is a gap there. Not as much as before, granted. And I think, you have to be clever, and you might be able to push it a bit. And if you've got a big table, I keep meaning to get a big table for this machine, then that's going to help you too, because you're going to have a bit more room to play with. As it is, mine is hanging off the machine there, isn't it? Because this machine doesn't come with a table, which I think that is a bit of a negative. Now what I would normally do is I would just normally pull, you see how I'm pulling that quite tight to kind of even them out, because there isn't much difference. But if you do that, you have to be so careful that you're grabbing the threads at the back and you're pulling that just as much. So in fact, you're not pulling it or pushing it under the machine, because if you pull your fabric like this and you're pulling against it as you sew, it's likely you will have the timing go off. So just a word of caution there. Okay, let's see. It's difficult because I kind of naturally do it anyway, but I'm trying not to. Take that pin out. Hopefully get it to match. I have got another little trick for you in a second for getting a really nice, beautiful seam. There you go, no puckers. That's taken it really well. And I do think I could push it a bit more with, a bit more of a difference, a bit more of a gap as we sew. Right, now I'm going to take you over to the other camera. 1 second. I'm going to go to, where are we? That one. And I'm just going to swing my other camera around so that it is on the ironing board. This is when I need some like interlude music or something, isn't it? It'd help if I took the actual fabric over, wouldn't it? So I'm going to show you another little tip for when you're pressing, which is super useful, not just in sewing, but in bag making as well. So let me go over to the ironing board camera. Okay, so we've got our two pieces that we've just stitched. You can see still a little bit wavy. Ignore my terrible stitching, that's fine. So what we want to do is we want to get that as a nice crisp fold, don't we, along that top edge. Let's imagine that that's what we're doing in our project. So what I do to get that is I turn it the wrong side up, so we've got our seam allowance facing us, and then what you're going to want to do is, get my iron ready, press your seam open, which feels kind of counterintuitive because normally you'd probably just do that and you might roll, you can roll it a bit. But to get it really crisp with cotton, you open up the seam allowance, give it a good press. You are going to need to be careful. I don't know if you saw there, but it was trying to pucker because there was a little bit of ease in there. Give it a nice steam as well. There's no steam coming out, but you give it a good steam. And then you've got a really beautiful seam. So if it's for clothes, that's fine, it's done. But if it's for a pocket, a slip pocket or something, I always, if it's cotton, press it open like that and then fold it back so that it's then wrong sides together and give it another press, because that is going to get you the best kind of fold. Normally I would steam it. That's going to get you a really nice crisp edge. Oh, that's hot. And it's going to be crisper than if you did it. I'll show you how you would normally do it, so you see what I mean. One thing I didn't check was the water in my iron. I know it's funny when I go onto Sewing Street, because none of the irons there have any water in it, because a lot of quilters don't like water in the iron. But when you're coming from a clothes making background, or indeed bag making, you kind of want a little bit of steam sometimes. So yeah, normally I've finger pressed that open already, haven't I? But normally you would just do that, wouldn't you, and press it. But I don't know if you could see there, but it's quite easy to have it even just a little way off, you know, sort of like that. Whereas if you do press it open first, you're not gonna have those issues, especially if there's a bit of ease to work in there. So press it completely open, fold it back, and then you can get, because you're kind of weakening, not weakening, that's the wrong word, you're softening the fibres, telling it exactly where you want it to go. There you go, look at that. It's a beautiful thing. There you go. Hopefully you found that to be useful. I'm going to pop back to the other camera. Hopefully that was good. Hopefully that was useful. I thought when I saw it today, I thought I've got to try that tonight and see how it works, see how we get on. Love a little trick like that. And if you're not so kind of used to pulling it through the machine, and I don't use that, I'm kind of a bit scared to say that because I don't want you to pull your work through the machine, but you know what I mean because of what I said. You've got to make sure that it's even on both the front and the back when you do that, because otherwise it's so easy to take the timing out of your machine, and then it is just a trip to the service repair shop or wherever you go to get it fixed, and that's just an absolute nightmare. So we want to avoid that at all costs. Well, thank you so much for catching up with me tonight and watching along. I know it's a bit of a quicker one than normal. Susan says that's brilliant, must give it a go. Esther says clever. Oh, glad you found it useful. So if you are in the 77 Club, give me a couple minutes and then I'll see you over in the Facebook group, and we will do our giveaway for January. So I'll see you in there. Hopefully it won't be too hard to find the Facebook lives. But yeah, it's in the Studio 77 Facebook group. Otherwise, I shall see you back here next Thursday on the live. As you may have seen, I am pre-scheduling them now, so they're a little bit easier to see. All right, take care, everybody. Thanks again for joining me. Have a great evening. Bye.